Hi everyone, it's been about a month since I last posted a video about my bees, and here today I'm about to apply the last of my 3 apiguard treatments. Admittedly, I'm way behind, and all this snowballed from me getting behind on my honey extracting, and that took several weeks longer than I was anticipating with all the redesign and everything. I needed to have started my mite treatments, mite washes and everything the first week in August, and it wound up being the week of the 22nd of August before I got to start any of that. I'm going ahead with my treatment regimen and hoping that the spring treatment was enough to carry me over and allow me a little bit of cushion in my timing here. And so far, I seem to be in pretty good shape. Of my overwintered colonies from last year, I've had 2 that are queenless, one of which is here, and I just got here and there's no bees left in it. And I've checked the brood combs for evidence of varroa toilets, and I didn't really see any. I determined the colony was queenless on my last 2 visits, and I just simply put one treatment in there to clean them up, and if there was any bees left today, I was just going to shake them off, take the equipment home. But I have the equipment loaded up. The combs have no damage whatsoever, and being that there's 10 combs in the deep, I'll be able to take those combs and use with 2 of my nukes next year to make 2 10-frame colonies and to put into honey production. And if you notice the buckets on my colonies, I can't remember if I talked about this before or not, but when I went around and took off the last super of honey, I had a bucket prepared, and I went ahead and put a bucket of feed on my colonies at the same time I took my last super off, because last year it took me a few days to get back around and I had 2 or 3 to abscond. So this year I did not have any to abscond. And also a couple of weeks ago I refilled those buckets, so I put 2 gallons of feed in those buckets 2 weeks apart so far. And then the last time around I went ahead and dumped about 5 or 6 gallons of sugar syrup into this humidity feeder I have made. I did shoot a video back at the time I did my mite wash, and I just got so far behind. I just decided I'm just going to skip even trying to edit that and just kind of talk about what I did in terms of my mite wash treatment. And I got the numbers results here, and I'll share those with you, and I'll share with you the thoughts I have based on what I saw. So for this year I decided to try a new mite washing vessel. This is the Saracel Varroa Mite test bottle, and I really like this. The other product I was using, the Mite Check, it was a good product, but this is better. And why I like this one better is because the other one was aggravating to get the threads right, plus even if you get them right, it's going to leak because you swirl it. This snaps together like Tupperware, has a seal on it, plus it's smaller at the top, it's easier to grip, to swirl, and I really like this. All I've ever used is Dawn Ultra. I've never used alcohol, even though it's called an alcohol wash. So this is the 3rd year of having a mite treatment strategy, and I've tried something last summer using the Dawn Ultra, and again this fall on a few hives. But what I wound up doing, I purchased 6 of these, and this helps me save time, because as I'm trying to learn a mite treatment strategy for my operation, I need good data, and also I need to try to get this done in a timely manner. So what I'm doing, I've got like 6 of these, 4 would be plenty, and I go down through there and get the sample, agitate for 20 seconds, set it on top of the hive. When I get to the end of the 4 or 6 and I come back and count the mites, that gives it about 5 to 7 minutes to settle down and for the bees to knock all the mites off. And it's working very well for me, and I'm not having to sit there and do this so much longer. So that's worked really good. So now for the results of what I got on my mite washes. So I went back and wrote this down, and I'm hoping this will come through the camera real good. So I just simply, this is the name of the yard, and basically these are I didn't do all 5 of them, but those are the nukes I bought last winter. Then I had one colony there I split, and I had an extra queen from the packages put in there. It had 28. One of them had 18, and then I had some that appeared to be queenless at that time, which one of them is queenless in the end, but the others did make it. So what it boiled down to is I had a bunch of older field force bees in there at the time, and I couldn't really get enough to do a sample on, but I went ahead and treated it anyway. This yard right here is my best yard that I've talked about so many times. 7 colonies here. I wound up getting right at 100 gallons off those 7 colonies. So this is the one that turned over. There was 50 plus in that, and then you had 21, 22, 27, one with 4, and then one with 50. And then I have one there that's been there for 4 or 5 years, or maybe even 6. It only had 8 mites in the wash. This next yard here is one that back in the spring, see this colony here was going to swarm. I stopped it, had to pull a super of brood off of it twice. So it had 21 mites, and all these produced good amount of honey. And then next ones had 2, 1, 3, 10, 28, and 8. Now, at least 4 of those colonies in that yard had European and foul brood, and I requeened all of them on the same day. That would have been in probably early to mid-April, best I can remember. And then this yard here had one with 43, 1, 2, 1, 19, 6, and 4, so they're all over the place. And then right here's the yard with that I had the packages, and I had one colony left there that was over winter, and that's the one here that had 50 plus. It did produce good honey, about 6 mediums. But as you can see, those packages, and by the way, when I took the samples here, I paid attention to a lot of the brood, and these colonies was by far had the most brood of any of my colonies. And so bear in mind, I bought these from a commercial beekeeper who pollinates almonds. So, you know, I don't know this for a fact, but these numbers could be skewed because there was so much brood in there. There could have been a lot of mites under there, with the exception of this one. There could have been a lot of mites under the cappings is what I'm talking about. And then finally, right here where I'm standing now, so this yard here did pretty good. So I had 27, 35, 4, 50, 15, and 10, and 7. I did do mite washes on all my overwintered honey production colonies, which was a total of 30. I did not do mite washes on my splits that are nukes and the really weak colonies that I split off of. I've learned over the last couple of years, when you do all that splitting, they're not going to really have a high mite count, although I am treating them. So now I want to talk a minute about these numbers I just showed you. What I was trying to do, and I had been waiting for almost a year to do that mite wash in August, and I didn't get to do it. So I waited almost an entire year in anticipation of performing those mite washes the first week of August, because I wanted to see what my spring treatment results is going to be. But I was, as you can see, I was 3 weeks behind. These numbers are what they are, but I kind of wondered if the numbers are skewed. So over the winter last year, I had determined that my 2 treatments was not good enough. I seemed to be losing a lot of queens, so I wanted to go ahead and add a 3rd treatment and see if that would improve the queen performance. And my thinking behind that is, by skipping out on the spring treatment as I had before, you know, and since Varroa tend to favor drone broods, could this be possibly affecting drone quality and drone quantities? And also, could this be transmitting viruses to the queens? You know, I don't know. So I'm going to try to keep my mites numbers lower over the entire year and see if that makes a difference. Seemed like last fall and early this spring, I had several queens. I mean, that's my #1 issue now, is queen loss. Of my overwintered colonies from last year, I've only lost 1. And then that one up there that was at that other yard, I'd requeened those about a month ago, so obviously one of those didn't take. And of my nukes, I've lost 2 of those. I had to requeen one of them about a month afterward. The brood pattern was poor. They took that queen, but for whatever reason, they just collapsed. Then I found one of my other nukes is they either absconded or whatever, it's empty. So even though I was 3 weeks late with that mite wash, you know, kind of going by the basis, now this is totally guessing. I'm just trying to look at this and make guesses based on the data I have and what I've learned over the past 3 years about Varroa treatments and stuff. So theoretically, the mite numbers double every month or every 3 to 4 weeks. So me being 3 weeks late tells me I might could reduce these numbers by 40 to 50% that I just showed you. But, you know, I realize that may not be scientifically accurate, but it's all I have to go by, because, you know, I'm going to have to wait now till the next summer to see if this is going to work. So if that's the case, and then that tells me that I had some improvement, but it's still may not be good enough. So I will be doing things a little bit differently next year. I'll still do a mite treatment in the spring. I'll still use apiguard in the summer. I'll still use oxalic acid over the winter months, you know, between Thanksgiving and Christmas most likely. I'm going to need to get that honey off earlier. This upcoming year I'm going to plan on getting that honey off starting towards the end of June and try to get it off and slung out in just a couple weeks or less. Go ahead and knock the mites down in July, and I think that will help somewhat with this. Now that also means I'm going to have to do more of a fall check, as it would seem that the late summer and early fall is the time of the year that drifting mites and robbing out of other sick colonies can have the most impact on your colony. So I may have to add in a fourth treatment there to allow for that. So I'll have to monitor that and see if I need to take that approach. So that's basically what I'm thinking about, looking at my mite treatment strategy. And you know, I just want to make it clear that what's working here for me in Northwest Alabama may not be good for your area. Basically trying to share my experience, what I'm doing, and some of it might be beneficial for you and some of it may not. So anyway, I've talked about this enough, so I want to get suited up, get my smoker lit. Going to check the weight of my hive, see if I need to put more food on, apply the last apiguard treatment, and just kind of look for, you know, make sure everything seems right. If in the colony, make sure they're all queen right. Now I won't dig for brood, but I'll just kind of glance down in there, see if I can see some brood, and just see how they're going. Well, anyway, I'm gonna get jacketed up and get started, and I'll show you what I'm gonna do. All right, as I get into this first colony, you'll notice how I've got my feed buckets underneath my cover like this. And one of the most common questions I've gotten from people in my area is, you know, does your buckets not blow off like that? And the answer is, I've never had one to blow off. I'm sure at some point they, you know, if the wind got bad enough, it can, but typically the late summer and fall in Alabama, unless you get a pop-up storm or a tropical system, the winds don't never blow that much. Now, you can hear some wind today as we've had a cold front come through, and it's very nice out here, but it's been a couple of weeks since I put these on, and the bees has also tropicalized this down. Also, the shape of the bucket I think contributes to it as well, and the weight. The wind can just flow smoothly around it. So, but either way, I've never had an issue with these buckets and the lids blowing off. And now I want to assess the weight of the colony, and I like to pick him up on three sides. Now this colony has got it's not in danger, but it's got a ways to go. It needs quite a few more pounds of feed. So if it turns out all these or most of these need some feed, I'll bring some sugar water down here and fill the community feeder, plus I'll fill their buckets. I requeened this colony back in August, late July. This was the one a couple years ago that had 83 mites in the wash, and this colony didn't perform that well this year. I don't know if they just never did supersede their queen or what, so I'll let you finally go ahead and put carniolan stock in here and see if that'll, one, get the mite count down overall, two, get the production back up as well. The colony's not aggressive. The bees are calm. They're not running around. They're not roaring, so I think everything's good in there. They just need a little more feed. Also, I have put at least 2 pounds of pollen supplement on every colony, but being that we're right in the middle of the fall flow right now, they're getting quite a bit of pollen out there. I'm going to wait another week or two before I put some more on there and let them try to get some of that fresh pollen and utilize it. But this colony is bringing in a fair amount of pollen right now. So this bucket's empty. They've taken all their syrup. Bees are calm. Even though I blow a little smoke in there, I don't hear them really roaring up more than normal. So that's a good indication that things are probably pretty good. I did forget to weigh my colony, but I'm kind of focused on talking rather than what I'm doing. Now this colony here is still light. This stuff is very light. But I can see some capped honey right here, so this one will be all right for a day or so till I can get back down here. If this colony is going to have some feed, it will starve. All right, here's the next hive. This colony here give me a pretty good yield as well. And this one's really light too. Yeah, and we'll have to I'm definitely going to have to put some effort into feeding this yard. This colony will not make it either. Now I had placed that card like this, so they drug that up there and turned it 90 degrees. I always put my cards at the back right here, and I don't know that it makes a difference, but being that the bees are trying to carry it out, I try to make them carry it the furthest distance possible from here to the entrance. So that's my reason in putting it behind it, or putting it at the back like that. But these seem to be queen right. Definitely needed some feed. The bees are calm, not running, they're not rolling, so that's good. So these colonies being light is not really a surprise to me. This yard over the years has been a poor performer for the fall flow, and yeah, this one's light too. So what I got to do something about this pretty quick, or these hives are not going to make it. So I'll go home and make, based on what I find at the other yards, I'll probably make a half a drum of sugar syrup, and then tomorrow afternoon after work I'll come down here and fill all these buckets, and I'll bring 2 or 3 of those community feeders down here and fill those up. I got to get some feed on these in a hurry. And without a doubt, because this is like 3 or 4 years in a row this has happened. When I first established this yard, for the first 2 or 3 years, it did pretty good in the fall flow. But the last 3 years, it has done very poorly as far as gaining weight during the fall flow. So I think in future years, I'm just going to bank on this one, this particular yard performing very poorly in the fall. Now it performs very well for the spring honey flow. So here we are at the next one. So these are 1 gallon buckets I have on here. I've got plenty of 2 gallon buckets. Now this colony here is the heaviest one here so far, but it still needs quite a bit of feed. But like I was saying, these are 1 gallon buckets, and I have the detent plugs in the top that you see some people use, and I like them a lot. So I'm going to transition these to 2 gallon buckets when I come back, because I need to get a lot of feed on these in a hurry. Totally gnawed that pad away, so I'll put a new one on there. So realistically, most of these colonies down here are going to need at least 4. Some of them are going to need about 6 gallons of feed put on between now and Halloween, which is about 4.5 weeks from now. So I'm going to have to feed this yard aggressively, and if I can't get them up to the weight that I want, which is about 80 to 90 pounds by that time, then I'm going to have to put some shims on here and some sugar bricks to make sure they get through winter, and then I'll just have to bank on carrying these to the, probably carry them home to feed like I did last winter, except hopefully instead of having 38 I might only have 6 or 7 of these. But clearly these they're not anywhere near ready for winter in terms of their weight. So here's the last one in this yard. This colony replaced its queen at the time of the spring treatment. It was one of the few that I had that did a supersedure in March, but it recovered and did pretty decent. It didn't produce near the honey that the others did, but it did okay. Yeah, this one weighs about as much as the other 2 heaviest ones, but it don't have enough feed either. Overall, the bees are really calm. I think they're in pretty good shape other than being a little light. All the bees are pretty dark. I think they have pretty good cardiolan influence. Not a tremendous amount of bees in here like there was back in the summer. So that's it for this yard. So like I said, I'll change all these feeders out to 2 gallon feeders. I'll get feeding them tomorrow, and I'll bring 1 or 2 more of those totes I got rigged up for a community feeder, and so it'll be 14 gallon in the bucket feeders, and then I'll probably put another 12 or 13 in each one of those. So basically I'm going to bring about 30 gallons of sugar syrup down here tomorrow and get it out. And that seems like a lot, I know, but these hives should take that in pretty quick, or over a day or 2. I got to get these fed aggressively before time runs out. So that's basically it. It's just a bunch of repetition. You see what I've done, I checked the weight on 3 sides. I'm not really checking any brood. I'm kind of just basing it on how the bees are reacting, and you know, if they roar up or they're really pretty hot or aggressive, I'm going to go down there and see if they're queen right. But other than these needing feed, I think they're in pretty good shape. So I'll probably just talk a little bit at each yard, but other than that, I'm not going to show you any more unless I come across something interesting, because this is all just repetition from here on. All right, let's load up and go to the next yard. All right, I've completed the assessment of all my colonies, of the ones that's overwintered, including these are the weakest, and about half of them continue to need feed, and about the other half are ready for winter. The ones I've taken the buckets off of and set down, the lids down, they're heavy enough, they're ready for winter now, including some of these that was my weakest that I requeened. 3 of them's heavy enough now, they no longer need feed. The other ones have great populations, so the requeening has done good. They just need some more feed. I want to get them heavier. They're decently heavy now, but I want to get them even heavier than they are now. So that'll be the last of my apiguard treatments, and we'll hit them with oxalic acid here in about 2 months, something like that, right after Thanksgiving, between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And hopefully they'll have a minimal amount of brood at that time. The yard that we started in is by far the most desperately in need of feed, so as soon as I shut this camera off, I'm gonna go down there and make up a 55-gallon drum of sugar syrup and get it down there tomorrow. Start feeding those and try to get those up to par. But all in all, my production colonies and my new splits here, my weak hives are requeened, they're doing good. The one colony I mentioned earlier in the video still had bees that was queenless, and I wound up just shaking those out. I'll be able to use those frames out of those 2 dead out, and I got a couple more dead outs, 3 or whatever. But anyway, I'll be able to make up maybe 12 of those nukes into 10 frame equipment next spring. Unless I have a disaster, I should start out with quite a bit more than 30 colonies for spring. It should be more like 45 to 50. Since I have like 176 supers that are already drawn out, that should keep me from stacking them so high, and I should be able to get some new combs drawn out this coming year. So that about wraps this portion up right here. So I want to thank you for joining me today for this video, and we'll catch you on the next one.